The light was still blinking on the answering machine when I found the envelope. The kind of blink you don't notice until everything else goes still. I had only been home 37 minutes. I counted. I always count when I'm trying not to think. The floorboards creaked the same. The house still held the faint smell of her perfume and that almond soap she liked. But the photograph from our anniversary trip was missing from the hallway table. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. The envelope was resting on the kitchen table, right where she used to leave notes like, "Took the car in for service," or "Don't forget the vet appointment." This time it just said my name. My real name. Not the one she called me when she was soft. I didn't sit. I stood over it like it might hiss or bleed. Inside was the divorce petition, neatly folded and signed by me but already filed. I skimmed it, not really reading. Words like irreconcilable and division of property slid past like fish beneath ice. There was no letter. No explanation. Just a post-it note stuck to the top with her handwriting. Didn't want to do this in person. You wouldn't understand. I didn't throw anything. Didn't curse. Just poured myself a glass of water I never drank and stood in the kitchen until the streetlights came on. The bedroom looked untouched. Her earrings were still on the dresser. The left side nightstand drawer was open, though, where she kept all the little things. Old letters. Movie stubs. The dog's collar from when he died. It was empty now. She didn't think I'd come back this early. I texted her. "Got the papers." She answered 10 minutes later. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this." That was the last thing she ever said to me that wasn't through a lawyer. I sat on the back steps, lit a cigarette I didn't want, and stared out into the dark. Her garden was overgrown. She always said she wanted wildflowers. I just saw weeds. I didn't cry, didn't scream, just felt this quiet pulling inside, like a slow tide going out, leaving me dry, bare. All the soft things between us evaporated like they were never real. And maybe they weren't. Maybe the warmth was always just condensation on cold glass. I don't remember going to bed, only that the sheets smelled like someone else's life. I lay awake until the sun came up and then got up like it was any other day. And that's how it ends, I guess. Not with a fight, not with a slammed door, but with silence. And an envelope. That's how the house felt. No echo, no noise. Just loaded. I didn't go back to see right away. I told the crew manager I had some things to sort out at home. He didn't press. They never do when you say personal. That word covers everything. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother in Charleston, not the guys on the ship. Not even Benji, my best friend since 3rd grade. I didn't want pity or advice. I didn't want to explain myself. I just needed time. Not to grieve, not yet. To watch. Because something wasn't sitting right. Divorce is one thing. Clean break, cut your losses. But this wasn't clean. It was too quiet. Too easy. No anger. No demands. Just a disappearing act. That's when I started checking. The joint account had been drained 4 days earlier, 3 days before I stepped off the boat. She didn't clear it all at once. It was strategic. $9,800 here. $9,500 there. Just under the reporting limits. Not sloppy, not angry spending. Planned. I didn't react. I printed the statements and filed them in a manila folder I labeled groceries. I went through her side of the closet. Nothing left but a winter coat she hated and a scarf I gave her that she never wore. I found a single earring on the dresser, the kind she'd only wear to feel expensive. The dog leash was gone too, and we hadn't had a dog in years. She was erasing herself from this place. Or worse, erasing me. I started making copies. Bank records. Tax returns. Even the deed to the house. I'd paid the down payment, every damn cent of it, from bonuses earned floating in international waters while she went to yoga class and painted rooms that never stayed the same color twice. I opened a new P.O. box under a different name, set up a second cloud account, installed a backup camera over the garage, not connected to Wi-Fi. I dug the old laptop out of the closet and wiped the drives. Then I sat down with a yellow legal pad and started making a list. House deed, joint accounts, her schedule, attorney, digital footprint, storage unit. That last one stayed circled for 2 days before I found the receipt in the junk drawer under expired coupons and takeout menus. Climate-controlled unit in Porter's Neck. Rented under her maiden name. I drove out there just to see. Didn't go in. Just sat in the truck across the lot and watched a man in a white SUV punch in the gate code. I recognized the car. He used to be our real estate agent. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't planning to leave me. She already had. All those months I'd spent on the water, she'd been living another life on land. And I'd missed every signal because I trusted her. Or maybe I just wanted to. Trust is a strange thing. It doesn't vanish. It rots. I kept quiet, even when the lawyer called. Hers, not mine. Mr. Cade, she said, cheerful and sharp. We're just following up on the paperwork, hoping for a cooperative process. Of course, I said. Whatever Emily needs. The way she exhaled, like she was relieved. That's how I knew they thought I was the quiet type. The kind that lets go easy. The kind that walks away. They didn't know me at all. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I started reading everything. State laws, spousal claims, financial tracing. I learned how to pull metadata from photo files. I started checking the timestamps on every picture she'd ever posted on social media. There were gaps. Weeks. Whole months where I was offshore and she was somewhere else. That's when the insomnia started. Not nightmares. Not anxiety. Just this hum under my skin. Like the sound the engine makes when you kill it, but it takes a minute to die. That's what my body felt like. Still vibrating from a life that didn't exist anymore. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted understanding. Then I wanted proof. Because if I was going to be the villain in her story, I wanted the whole damn plot. Not just the summary she gave her friends. So I kept going. I set up alerts on my accounts. I checked the local court filings for her name. Nothing yet. I drove out to her workplace and sat across the street. Watched her come out smiling, talking too close to a man in a light blue shirt who held her elbow like he'd done it before. That night, I pulled up our old texts. I looked at the last message she sent me before I left for the last trip. Let me know when you're back. I'll make lasagna. I remember that lasagna. It tasted off. It didn't fall apart all at once. It unraveled, one thread at a time. The days started to feel warped. Like time was passing in a different shape than before. Mornings bled into evenings without definition. I'd go to make coffee and find myself standing in front of the sink with the kettle cold in my hand. I stopped calling it our house. Just started calling it the house. You'd be amazed what you notice when no one thinks you're watching. It started with the mail. Forwarded to a P.O. box I didn't recognize. A credit card offer addressed to her maiden name. A package from some boutique I'd never heard of with someone else's initials on the shipping label. I wasn't supposed to be home yet. That was the mistake she made. She planned it like a disappearing act, but the curtain came down too early. There were fingerprints everywhere, and I'd stopped pretending not to see them. I knew her well. Not the version she curated for brunch or book club. The real version. The one that hummed with nerves before she lied. The one that rearranged the silverware drawer when she was anxious. The one that took her wedding ring off during thunderstorms because she said it made her feel unearthed. Her ring wasn't in the drawer anymore, or on the bedside table, or anywhere. Gone. Like a ghost that no longer haunted the place. I started driving by places. Not stalking, just watching. Her gym. Her office. The dog park we used to walk through on Sundays. One day I saw her at the cafe near the university, the one she never liked because the tables were too close together. She was laughing. Leaned across the table with her hand on someone's wrist. Not a colleague. That wasn't a work laugh. That was a before we sleep together again laugh. I didn't look away. Just watched her laugh and wondered how many months it had taken for her to forget how my voice sounded first thing in the morning. Later that night, I found the photograph. It was tucked inside one of the cookbooks she hadn't taken. I didn't even know we still had it. The photo, not the cookbook. It was from a Halloween party 3 years back. She was dressed like some gothic fairy tale thing. I had face paint and fake blood dripping down my cheek. In the picture, we're smiling. But the moment I saw it, I knew the truth. She was already leaving me. You can see it in her eyes. The way she's angled away from me, just slightly. The way her smile is perfect, but it doesn't reach the corners. Like she's practicing it for someone else. I started going through the photos on her old iPad. The one she thought I didn't know the passcode for. Same digits she used to punch into the garage when we were running late. There were new names in her contact list. One saved only as M. No last name. Just a city. Richmond. The texts were gone. Deleted. But deletion leaves a shadow. You can see when a conversation existed, the empty space between messages. Gaps in the timeline. I kept a log. Not because I wanted to hold it against her, but because I needed to know when it started. Needed to understand where the truth ended and the pretending began. The pretending. That's what gnawed at me. The sex before I left. The kiss at the airport. The way she told me to bring back one of those stupid handmade scarves from the port market. She was still collecting souvenirs from a life she'd already walked out of. I started dreaming again. Not nightmares, just warped echoes. We were sitting at the kitchen table, playing cards. She looked up and asked, "Do you remember who I am?" I woke up choking on air. And there it was, the slow realization you can't reverse engineer love. You can't look at the pieces and say, "Here's where it broke." Because maybe it never broke. Maybe it was always cracked, and the light just hadn't hit it right until now. I got a call from a mutual friend, someone I hadn't heard from in months. "I saw him at the wine bar last week," she said casually. "Didn't know you were back." "I'm not," I said. She hesitated. "She wasn't alone," she added. "Some guy in a charcoal coat. Tall. Looked younger." That was when it hit me. She wasn't hiding. She just wasn't afraid. The betrayal wasn't the shock. It was the confidence. That's when I knew something was coming. Something big. Something final. I didn't know what form it would take. Court summons, public humiliation, maybe some new story she'd spin to explain me away. But I could feel it in the air. I kept waking up at 2:14 a.m. every night. No alarm. No noise. Just my body jolting up like it had heard something my ears hadn't. Some nights I'd stare at the ceiling and think about the first time I kissed her. We were sitting in my old truck, radio playing some song she hated. Her lips tasted like cherry lip balm and cheap wine. She smiled afterward and said, "You really don't talk much, do you?" I didn't then, but I will now. I always thought the worst pain would come from hearing her say it to my face. But she never had to. The numbers told me everything. The first forged document I found wasn't even hidden. It was sitting in the filing cabinet under house. A refinance agreement with both our names. My signature beside hers. Perfect, almost. But I don't curl my lowercase or like that. Never have. I stared at it for 5 minutes. Then I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slow, my hand steady the entire time. This wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated. She'd signed for me. Pushed through a loan using my name while I was offshore. Probably while I was patching a busted generator at midnight in the middle of the Atlantic. The money from the refinance was gone. Account closed. Redirected to a checking account I'd never seen. I drove to the bank branch in town. Asked the woman at the desk to verify when the signature had been submitted. "Oh, that's all done online now," she said brightly. I smiled back. "Even notarization?" She blinked. "Well, no, not technically." I asked for a printed copy of the refinance application. She looked nervous, then excused herself to get her manager. I didn't care. The manager came out with a folder. Inside, digital forms, login records, timestamps. Every one of them from a week I'd been deep sea. Out of range. Out of contact. Gone. There was no way I could have signed anything. And that's when it stopped being a story about heartbreak. That's when it became a case. I didn't go home. I drove to a small bar 10 miles out, ordered a club soda, and sat with the folder open under the low light, reading it over and over again until the words lost meaning. She hadn't just left. She'd taken pieces of my life with her and forged my hand to get away with it. I drove home just before midnight and found the locks changed. No warning. No explanation. Just a deadbolt that didn't take my key anymore. I sat on the front steps for a while, listening to the wind moving through the trees like a voice I couldn't quite make out. The next morning, I didn't knock. I called my lawyer. Her name was Gwen. Quiet type. Sharper than she looked. "This isn't just a divorce," I told her. "This is theft." Gwen looked through the documents in silence, then nodded. "And potentially fraud, depending on what else we find." We found more. The house wasn't the only thing she'd touched. She'd changed beneficiaries on a life insurance policy, redirected mail, even tried to close one of my offshore pay accounts. She'd signed a power of attorney I never gave her, attached it to paperwork at the DMV, and used it to register a second vehicle. She was methodical. I'll give her that. And then, the kicker. I got an email from the mortgage company confirming a scheduled walkthrough. The house was going on the market. My house. The one I'd paid for while she was getting wine drunk with someone in khakis. I showed up that afternoon just as the real estate agent was opening the front door. "Sorry, this is a private showing," he said. "Yeah," I said, pushing past him. "I know. I used to live here." I walked through the living room. Everything was staged, cushions plumped, flowers in a cheap vase, fake magazines fanned out on the coffee table. Like the last 11 years of my life had never happened here. Just a showroom now. I walked into the bedroom. The bed was new. Hers. Mine was gone. Then the closet, and there it was. A box labeled documents. Not hidden. Not locked. Just lazily tucked in with a bunch of old scarves and a half-empty bottle of body spray. Inside the box, copies of my driver's license, my old military ID, bank forms with scrawled notes, printed instructions for online notarization tools, a burner phone. She'd planned this down to the damn stationery. I took photos of everything. The agent was waiting at the door when I came back down. "You really need to leave," he said. I looked at him. "She forged my name. I'll leave when I'm done." He didn't argue. Outside, I sat in my truck and listened to the silence again. That same weighted quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Then I dialed Gwen. "They're selling the house," I said. "Not without a fight," she replied. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. This didn't have to be messy. No name, no signature, but I knew her writing, even in pixels. I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back, "You made it messy when you signed my name." I used to think betrayal was a single act, a moment, but sometimes it's a machine, built slowly, in the dark, piece by piece. I stopped drinking coffee in the mornings, started drinking silence instead. I'd sit at the kitchen table in my brother's apartment, where I'd been staying since the locks were changed, and stare at the wall like it might flinch and reveal something. Sometimes it felt like I was listening for a sound no one else could hear. A low hum behind the noise. A signal. Then one day I heard it. Not through the wall, but in the gap between numbers. Gwen and I were cross-referencing the forged refinance papers with Emily's bank activity when I noticed something odd. A series of payments to a company called Linwood Assets, LLC. Harmless sounding. Clean. Just vague enough. I ran a search. Nothing. No website. No services listed. I looked up the listed address. A UPS store. One of those rented mailboxes dressed up to look like a suite. That's when I felt it. The shift. The first thread of a bigger lie. I spent the next 2 days cross-referencing everything Emily had touched in the last year. Every utility bill. Every shared account. Every browser autofill and login I'd ever synced on our shared devices. Piece by piece, I reconstructed a shadow life. Linwood Assets wasn't real, but the money funneling into it was. For $1,000 here. $7,500 there. Always on the heels of a payment coming into one of my old offshore job accounts. One she wasn't supposed to have access to. It meant she'd been monitoring me longer than I thought. I didn't confront her. I didn't send a single text. I went deeper. There was a man's name I kept seeing, embedded in the metadata of PDFs she'd scanned, listed as secondary signer on a short-term rental agreement in her email trash folder. Nathan Royce. Sounded fake. Too soap opera slick, but real enough to have a driver's license. I found him on LinkedIn. Financial consultant, which is code for doesn't really have a job. Mutual friends with one of Emily's yoga instructors, the one she stopped mentioning 2 years ago. I dug harder. A property deed showed up. An apartment in Durham. Bought in cash. 4 months ago. In Royce's name. Traced the cashier's check back to Linwood Assets. Same money. Different face. That's when it started clicking into place. This wasn't just Emily running out of love. This was Emily running a con. She had a partner. Maybe more than one. Royce had opened companies before. LLCs with similar names. All dissolved. All after 8 to 10 months. All traced back to women. Different names. Same pattern. Women like me. Because that's what I was now. Not a husband. Not an anchor. A mark. I met with Gwen the next morning and laid it all out on the table. This wasn't a breakup, I said. This was an operation. She listened, nodded, then made a quiet call from her desk phone. Within a week, we had a private investigator on retainer. Ex-cop. Quiet. Efficient. The kind of guy who doesn't blink when you say the word fraud. He pulled Royce's record, a sealed charge in another state, related to elder exploitation. No conviction. No details. But a pattern. 3 women before me. One still in court trying to reclaim a house she never officially sold. One living out of a motel in Kansas. One missing completely from social media, her last post 5 years old. This wasn't love gone sour. This was scaffolding, built around trust, disguised as affection, disassembled the moment it had served its purpose. Royce was the spider. Emily was the bait. And I was the fly that got tired at just the wrong moment. The PI found more. Emails between them. Fake invoices. Photos from a trip they'd taken while I was away, not hiding at all. She wore a scarf I'd given her in Spain, laughing into the sunlight like she hadn't just set fire to my life. I didn't feel anger. Not in the way people think. It was colder than that. More surgical. I felt ready. I spent the next week building a report. Not for the court. Not for Emily. For the board. The invisible board in my mind where I laid everything out like a general before battle. Evidence of the forged documents. Bank transfers and LLC registrations. Royce's known aliases. Statements from 2 of his former partners. Photos of them together taken within our marriage. Metadata. Timestamps. Dates. Every lie, dated and preserved. I printed it all. Bound it. Numbered every page. And then I sent 1 copy to her lawyer. No message. No explanation. Just silence. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please. Emily. I stared at it for a long time. Typed nothing. Deleted it. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the volume of the truth. The morning I sent the package, the wind outside had turned sharp. One of those early coastal storms that brings cold before the calendar says it's time. I watched the clouds roll in like soldiers. The package was thick, heavy with weight that couldn't be ignored. Documents, timestamps, screen captures, photographs. Even the rental application Emily filled out with Royce's name scribbled next to hers under emergency contact. The delivery confirmation came through at 9:42 a.m. At 10:13, Gwen called. She's panicking, she said. Her lawyer reached out. Wants to know what you're looking for. Everything that's mine, I said. And if she doesn't offer? She will. By noon, Emily had called 6 times. I didn't answer. At 12:08, she left a voicemail. Please, just let me explain. You don't know everything. She was wrong. I knew everything now, and I didn't need her to explain. I wanted her to sit with it. The way I had. In silence. In disbelief. In that hollow, echoing room where truth rings louder than any apology. I waited 2 days. Then I scheduled the meeting. Neutral ground. A mediation room downtown. Fluorescent lights. Linoleum floors. The kind of place where no one raises their voice because everything echoes. She walked in wearing the same navy coat she used to wear when she picked me up from the pier. A coat I once thought looked like home. She looked tired. Not guilty, not yet. Just tired from the weight of being found out. She sat. Her lawyer sat. Gwen sat. I stood. I slid the report across the table to her side. Didn't say a word. She opened it. Flipped past the first page. Her hand started to shake by page 4. By page 10, she stopped reading. Do you have something to say? Gwen asked her. Emily didn't answer. Her lawyer did. This isn't necessary. We're here to negotiate in good faith. No. I cut in, finally speaking. You were here to bluff. I'm here to finish. I opened my folder. Pulled out a short stack. I want the house, I said. I want every cent that was siphoned from our accounts returned. I want a signed affidavit admitting to the forgery of my signature on the refinance application. And I want full release of any claims to my future offshore earnings. Emily's lawyer started to protest, but I raised a hand, not to silence her, just to remind her what was in that binder. I can take this to court, I said quietly. I can press charges. I have enough here for fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. That's not a threat. It's just where this road goes if we don't settle today. Then I looked at Emily. Your call. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering fast. Emily didn't speak. Just kept staring at the pages in front of her like they might catch fire and burn the proof away. They didn't. By the end of the hour, the terms were agreed. By the end of the week, the documents were signed. And by the end of the month, she was gone. No goodbye. No further calls. Just vanished, the way ghosts do when you finally stop believing in them. But Royce? He was still out there. So I made a call. To the woman in Kansas. The one still fighting to reclaim her name. I sent her what I had. Then to the woman who disappeared from social media. Her brother picked up. Said she'd lost everything. Started over. I sent him the binder too. And Royce? He got his own package. Same materials. No note. No explanation. Just evidence. A storm in an envelope. And I filed a formal complaint with the state's Financial Crimes Division. Let them find him. Let them unravel him the way I had to unravel my life. One lie at a time. That night, I sat on my porch and listened to the wind. I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel healed. But I felt clean. There was no noise left in my head. Just a kind of hard, earned silence. The kind that says, you survived. Now build something out of what's left. There was no bang, just paperwork. Royce was arrested 3 weeks later in a Whole Foods parking lot. Wire fraud, identity theft, financial manipulation. Not just me. For other victims stepped forward once the reports hit their mailboxes. Different cities. Same pattern. Emily wasn't charged, but her name was all over the documentation. Enough that her lawyer offered to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Cowardice masquerading as contrition. She moved out of state. I heard through a friend that she's taking time to rediscover herself. Must be nice. The house was mine again. Empty, yes, but honest. The silence inside no longer whispered secrets, it breathed. When called to tell me the final decree was filed. It's over, she said. No, I replied. It's settled. Justice doesn't always feel like a victory. Sometimes it's just an ending that doesn't lie. The first morning I forgot to think about her was the first morning I made coffee without checking the shadows. It came soft. No revelation. No sunrise epiphany. Just a quiet Tuesday. Cold toast. The sound of a lawnmower somewhere down the street. And me, barefoot in the kitchen, staring out the window at nothing in particular. I'd bought a new mug. Nothing fancy. Just plain ceramic, dark green. Not one we'd shared. Not one she touched. Mine. I drank slow, let the warmth settle. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. Just hollow in a way that left space to grow into. Later that day, I cleared out the garage. Found the box of photos I thought I'd thrown away. Flipped through them without flinching. Not to punish myself. Just to remember I survived it. There's a woman at the bakery who asks how I am every time I come in. She means it. I don't know where that's going, if anywhere. But for the first time in a long time, I don't need it to go anywhere. I just need the moment. The day. The quiet. I'm not healed. But I'm healing. And that's enough.